Dale Jensen was born in Oakland and has degrees in psychology from UC Berkeley and the University of Toronto. His poetry, though described as eclectic, is influenced by the Surrealists and such cut-up writers as William Burroughs and Brion Gysin. Dale has authored and published 7 books and 5 chapbooks and coordinated several poetry reading series in the Bay Area. He edited the poetry magazine Malthus in the 1980s.
Thank you for being here. It's wonderful. I'm going to start off with a couple from some coffeehouse poems. And the first one in the book, The Return. At 10:30, the forest closes down. The animals come into the coffee house. You can tell which animals are which by their gait and their posture. Some of the animals have to stay outside. Giraffes are too tall for the ceiling. Whales are too wide for the door. The imaginary ones, the ones beyond mythology, the ones you can't see anyway, probably got in here first. They fill up all the empty spaces here. You breathe them, they breathe you. The latest taste of your coffee lingers. The drama within you is something that the world brought in with you, but somehow you feel more comfortable about it. And one more from this book, Palmyra. The bright pink painted on the woman's fingernails is awake and makes live the worn brown of the door even more than her smile or the reflection of her sunglasses. She strides into a brick coffee house, and when she comes out, she's 20 minutes older. The deal agreed to there. 20 minutes of life for 20 minutes of table. 20 minutes of life for everyone in the place. Yes, watch her with the vivacity of the sunbeams reflected in the window of the red van parked across the street. The tattoos, like smoke, adhere to her arm in the heat of this weather. Even door jambs are sensitive to her memory. So when she walks in here, the house of bright colors salutes her. She stays, life whirls, then she leaves, a mere 20 minutes or older, close to the age she was in Athens, Rome, Palmyra, when at first, lively and unafraid, she entered into the house of liveliness. She is joyous in leaving as she was in entering, and her happiness spreads itself to anyone who aspires to watch her. And one from Amateur Mythology. Air. When the structure of the music changes, the structure of ice changes too, and the structure of the stars and the temperature of the sky. And the mood of the listener changes, that of the king in the same room as the string quartet, and of the street bum just outside the sight of the palace guards, but still within hearing range. Oh, hear me, O Loki, O Hermes, Coyote, O God whose name is so old that everyone has forgotten it. I have left apples for you on the kitchen table and a small radio playing softly. I have not forgotten you. All the deities mentioned in here are trickster deities. And this is a brand new one. Comedians crossing the plains. Smile, the face's own face looked back at him. That snappy, quick, sketching hyperbole, night sky like cloth, motion coating wicker baskets, buzzers, nylons, werewolf football, corner window cold as the moon. They began it in the wilderness of night for a while. You know that part. The comedians in the mud eating civilization. Past the saltiness, the pepper, the clown cars, one vehicle at a time. They all knew the joke. Humanoids wandered across the plains around 100,000 BCE and tried to grin, occasionally pointing out the chocolate cake in the sky. This is why history runs toward you. This is why it's sometimes you who are out of breath. History has been doing this for millions of years, so it's you in your clown shoes who stumbles on your way down the hill, but still to smile. Hey, you in the front row, get ready to eat that dessert. This next one is cut up, and it's cut up on the infraverbal level, which means the syllabic level. And it's cut up from the work of a Victorian novelist that we hardly ever read his books anymore. His name was Edward Bulwer Lytton. And he came up with such phrases as, the pen is mightier than the sword. And also, very dear to beagles who sleep on top of their dog houses, it was a dark and stormy night. So 3 quotes from Edward Bulwer Lytton. 1. Bene af ruleo inti rulai great, the penis me cheer the nymphs word. 2. I toisad gods torm in eat. There infel int or rent sex, septot o cas scion of lint vals, when I twas check, edbi avi o lent, gus tof in ix wept. Up this treats for it I sin land, anth at ersk en eli srat klingle o nk a house to ps and fi selly get tinkt he scan teeth lame o full amp at stru glad aga inst the darkness. 3. Tail do es hat it can gen I oost o s hatty must. This one I was not going to read tonight, but something happened, and it was in all the newspapers locally and maybe nationally, at the school where I went to junior high school a long, long time ago. Diamonds. I just read about it in society section of the newspaper. Diamonds, chandeliers, white tie and laughter all around at that year's opera gala or a reception for the latest fad actor, I forget which. But the gowns cut low, the docility of jewelry, the besotted people trying to look suave, I remember. I just read about it the next morning on a side street. Diamonds, chandeliers, white tie, and sounds like gunfire at that year's opera gala or the caliber they used. I forget which. But the gowns, his mouth open, his eyes open wide. The besotted people, the stars closed above him. The neighbors found him in the society section of the newspaper. They'd been afraid to go out earlier. Laughter all around. The children could even guess a reception for the latest fad actor. But he'd been dead, cold dead for hours, cut low the docility of jewelry, as if screaming at the windows, trying to look suave, I remember. The neighbors found him the next morning on a side street. They'd been afraid to go out earlier. Sounds like gunfire. The children could even guess the caliber they used, but he'd been dead, cold for hours. His mouth open, his eyes open wide, as if screaming at the windows. The stars closed above him. Thank you. What happened was some gangsters decided to shoot up this high school. So they just walked in and started shooting. They don't know if they shot any of the people they were aiming at, but 6 people wound up in the hospital. Anyway, one of the things that I decided early in COVID is there are a lot of poets who aren't around on our plane of existence anymore, whom we knew, our contemporaries, and are in danger of being forgotten and shouldn't be. And every time I read for more than 10 minutes, I'm going to be reading a poem, maybe a short poem, by one of these poets. And the poet will vary from reading to reading. I'll try not to repeat myself until I've done quite a few. And the poet I'm going to be reading from tonight is H.D. Moe. Let's see if you can see this. He was a very inventive, some would say eccentric poet. He was also an editor and a publisher. He was based mostly in San Francisco and Berkeley, but he was also all over Northern California. And he has been dead for several years now, but you can find his books around in used bookstores. One bookstore that had a fairly good stock of his stuff last time I looked was, and I don't mean this as a pun at all, Moe's Books and on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley. So by H.D. Moe, Muse News. Trickle down summertime, Clementina boxes, Bing Bong, Ronald Wrong, play ball with your gyroscope unequals what I did today. Half dreaming, I groped and fell into myself, locating brains in the module. Recognizing spontaneous practice, Nepenthe amnesia, gauntlets beauty, noble wide Hemingway forehead, old photo eyes of Emily Dickinson, night bowling afternoons, smooth bat skeleton proportions, listening touch, Rolls-Royce vanishing cream, whipping roads, feeling many twisting lamb. Bag a spirit of the waters. This is you. Be cool. Who kills death kind. The Commodore of virgin fur, tuning in his pinto bean. Okay. 2 more, neither of them by H.D. Moe. Another one from some coffee house poems. And The poems in some coffeehouse poems were written in or about, or in and about coffee houses. This was written in and also about sacred grounds in San Francisco. Setting course. In San Francisco, there are westbound buildings that lower their bows to the ocean, then raise them to the moon. Photos of my dead friends are stationary on the coffeehouse wall. Their living colleagues enliven themselves with coffee and listen to the lunar laughter of dead poets. Outside the window, across just one street, the cantilevered tower of a plastered over Victorian mansion rocks too in this stormy existence. It faces north, its top basket a crow's nest for all the spirits that walk through these walls, not yet completely of the skies, the seas, or the full reading space of our memories. And one more. This is from New York. A lot of poems about New York in it, but other poems too. Borrowed End. Tell me when I'm fog and almost established as a physical logger-shirted grandfather, walking the whole streets, ethereal liquids on a leash down Telegraph Avenue. Into the mirror brushed up against itself, over and over into what you'd guess to be infinity, one image for each year, all the years you've wandered. This park still asleep in its delusion, and the only light, a candle settled on a borrowed end table that's been in this house since the 1890s. Be a long night, duffel bag over his shoulder, and you can decant a noir movie or a 19th century and its lethal fogs. Hey, sailor, long decade this night, with the killer lawn gnome on this northbound bus, the hippie sidewalks, punk traffic lanes, center line in the night's invisibility of blacktop. My fingers still walk Warhol's New York City as the bus goes further into temporal inscrutability and cars blur around memory of familiar fog. In the mirror there, you can see the legends getting smaller, no matter how well you remember them in the candlelight. Is that a tie-dye or a toga? A periwig, or do they know how to cure and dye animal skins yet? This new borrowed time's in his duffel too, as the warm light flows his course across the range of the mirror. So thank you.